welcome to episode 6 of Chiro Thoughts, where we talk all things chiropractic and health. Today we're going to switch it up a little bit. We've been talking about a lot of signs and symptoms, different chronic diseases, infertility, GI function. So today we are going to talk about wellness, the wellness paradigm. What is wellness? How can we attain that optimal health, optimal function? And we are going to dive in. So we can just start off going over maybe the definition of what is health. We ask our patients typically when they come in what they believe the definition of health is. And a lot of times it has to do with exercise, nutrition, all really great things, but still doesn't get down to the deep rooted, I think, real true definition of health. So you want to jump into that?
The wellness is my favorite topic to talk about. So
we could go on and on for days about wellness.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we talk a lot about conditions or diseases because that's what people have on their mind when they get diagnosed. Hey, I'm hurting, I have this condition. But at the end of the day, if you're living in a wellness paradigm, right, we don't necessarily need to talk about those because we're a step ahead. We're keeping our bodies well instead of worrying about fighting off sickness or getting out of a state of sickness or disease. So,
and that's what chiropractic care most of the time is. It's preventative.
Chiropractic care is all about. Yeah, there was research. It was published in Time magazine. 2012, I think, right at the beginning of the Obama era. And it was an overview of America's health, and they talked about, I remember the quote out of Time magazine was, wellness, it's cheaper, easier, and more likely to save your life. And so I think we get into this horrible pattern of doing nothing until we have our first symptom, right? And so when we kind of poke fun with our patients and say, hey, we don't want anyone to brush their teeth until they have their first cavity, right? We don't want anyone to start exercising until they get high blood pressure. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't sound right. You're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And we agree. We totally agree, because that's not wellness. That is, right, that's reactive, not proactive. Wellness is all about being proactive. And so we would never do those things. We would never wait to brush our teeth until we get our first cavity. It doesn't make any sense. We want to make sure we're taking care of our teeth, they're staying super healthy, optimizing their function, and we know if we do that, most likely we won't have a problem. And if we do, we'll be way further ahead than if we hadn't. And so to me, that's the idea that encompasses wellness is prevention and keeping our bodies at 100%.
Yeah, and speaking of brushing your teeth too, your spine, it's bones as well, but so much more important because it houses your nervous system. So yes, teeth are super important. People see those. We say, you want to have super nice teeth because people can see those. People don't see your spine until we show you on your x-ray, and then people are mortified. They're like, that's what it actually looks like?
We've talked, there's a poster, which maybe we can even include, that shows spinal decay next to tooth decay. And when you look at the tooth decay, you think, oh my gosh, that's horribly ugly. I would never want anyone to see that. But yet the spinal decay, most people walking through our door are probably in phase 2, spinal decay. And it's grotesque for the spine. It decreases the function of the nervous system. And what is more important than the central nervous system? And that's really where a talk of wellness has to come down to brain, body function, central nervous system function, because it controls every other function of the human body. We're kind of getting ahead of we didn't really define health yet. Do you want to define health?
Yeah. So typically during our doctor's report, we define health. We take the World Health Organization's definition, which is health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So we typically break that up into 2 different parts. So the first part, you have to be 100% complete physically, mentally, and socially. I kind of like to add spiritually healthy in there too. To have half of your health. So we want 100% in all of those categories. We talk a little bit about the wellness continuum, where you fall on that wellness spectrum. but we want to be at that optimal function in all of those categories. We don't just pick or choose one of them. Like I had mentioned, a lot of people define health with exercise and nutrition, so they're looking more in like the physical aspect, but social and mental are super, super important as well. Second part of the definition talks about not being the absence of disease. So you can't say, I don't have any pain, I don't have any symptoms, I don't have chronic illness, therefore I'm healthy. You can't define health by what it's not. You have to define it by what it is and what it's not. So on the wellness continuum as well, we can look and see, okay, well, if you rank it a 6 or a 7, organ function, you can lose 40% of your organ function and have 0 symptoms. So a lot of people, we were talking about before, wait until they have a symptom, and then you were just one step ahead of falling into a chronic disease or illness or having symptoms. You weren't at a 10 where you can get knocked down a few more notches and take a hit, and then you have symptoms, because you are at the optimal function. And most often when you are optimally functioning, you don't have a ton of symptoms because your body fights off those viruses, bacteria, all that stuff. So, anything to add to that?
I always like to boil down health, right? You said complete physical, mental, social well-being. I always, for simplicity's sake, say 100% functioning and healing of the human body. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very clear cut. Is your body functioning at 100%, healing at 100%? Healing is really just another function. Mm-hmm. So we could just go right and say 100% function. That encompasses physical, mental, social well-being all in one. So the only way to know if you're functioning at 100%, or the control of all function, is your brain, mm-hmm. right? So then we have to look at the brain and say, is our brain functioning normally? And is the brain able to control the body normally at 100%? And that's where chiropractic's role steps in. Mm-hmm. Is because that is our sole purpose, right? Our purpose is not to get a patient out of symptoms, which
Yep.
But the patients come in and say, I have this symptom, I want to feel better. I have this condition, this disease, I want to feel better. Chiropractic does great with that, because once we can restore health and function, we can restore the neurologic control of that symptom. But that is not the purpose, the intended purpose.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I ask all of our patients on their first visit is, what are your goals with care? A lot of people say, I just want to be paid and free, obviously, like that's the obvious answer. But once we do educate and say, that's only 7% of what the nervous system does. That's just merely a side effect of chiropractic care, is being out of pain. We want you to function at 100%, all of your organs, all of your everything, functioning 100% all the time, so that you can be in a better state. Because we also say, the same nerves that go to your low back that could be creating sciatic pain, go to those reproductive organs, go to your kidney, your bladder, all of those super important visceral organs that are doing the majority of your function on a day-to-day basis that you don't even realize. So
in order to be 100% healthy, you have to have 100% communication from brain to body, bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so many people skip that step, right? The foundation of all health, they say, I have no idea if my brain is controlling my body properly, but I exercise all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to take my supplements. I'm going to make sure I get proper sleep. Great, but you're missing the key.
Yeah.
The key is, are you functioning at 100%? And that's chiropractic's job. That's why, we say all the time, we don't necessarily know what to expect from the body, other than you're going to heal and function. I always say the body doesn't heal selectively. It doesn't say, well, hey, we're going to heal this and not that. It's constantly striving to be well. And when you receive the adjustment, when your body's functioning, the body heals from things all the time. Mm-hmm. We had a patient come in today, got his first adjustment, came in and said, I was sitting at my desk doing work, and it was the first time in a long time where I felt clear-headed. I didn't have brain fog. I was just like thinking clearly. I realized it's been I didn't know that was going to happen, but that's, one of the things that are symptoms that are hanging on the wall is reduced brain fog, right? Yeah. Clarity of mind. And that's great. So the body doesn't heal selectively. The body heals all the time. It's constantly striving to be well. Yeah, I was thinking, when we're talking about the wellness paradigm specifically, right, we compare that to the allopathic model of medicine, where medicine says you cannot participate in our system unless you're sick, unless you have a symptom. And that's why I don't like to use the term health care. We use the term sick care because you can't participate unless you're sick. And that's really the fundamental difference between what chiropractic does and what medicine does. Is our goal is to strive to get people functioning at 100%. Their goal is to take someone from symptomatic to non-symptomatic. And non-symptomatic is a very dangerous place to be because you're in a neutral standpoint. You're one step away from being miserable. You're one step away from being sick, but you feel like, hey, I must be good. I'm simply going to wait around until I have a problem in order to do something.
And that's, I think, just the indoctrination of the medical system at large is wait until you do have a symptom, then come and see us, because we say you can't participate in the system unless you're sick. And so that's why it is just sick care. I mean, medication can change your chemistry, but it's not getting you to that optimal state of health. So that's why we encourage our patients, don't just show up when you're in pain. We want to see you when you're not in pain so we can take a preventative approach. And the body does 90% of its healing when you're not in pain. So we definitely want to educate, don't show up when you're just in pain.
Yeah, right. Don't brush your teeth only when you have a cavity. Don't exercise only when you have a symptom. I mean, really don't drink water only when you're dehydrated, right?
Well, and
stay at those optimal levels.
When you are out of pain and we get you to that point, then you give the example when you look in the mirror after you get to the best shape of your life, and then you say, oh, I'm not going to exercise ever again. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So you need to keep doing.
Yeah, right. The analogies are endless. I always think of our cars, right? It's like, hey, let's wash our car, let's change the oil in our car, top the fluids off, all of our routine. And then once we've done it, we never need to do it again. Like, well, of course not. I mean, we have to do that regularly, every maybe 3,000 to 6,000 miles, because that's machines go from order to disorder. All matter goes from order to disorder unless we're intervening to do something to make it stay at its optimal function. And that's what we call vitalism, right? Or holism, right? That your body is more than the sum of its parts. As an entirety, the nerve system communicates with every organ, every tissue, right, to keep your body working as a functioning unit. And so we obviously go to the master control center, which is the nervous system, but then we have to step back and say, now, are we applying the right strategies to keep us at 100%? So it has to be a complete picture of wellness and wholeness.
Yeah. And we talk too about just the pyramid of wellness, and we believe that core chiropractic is the foundation, because all of these other great decisions that you're making that do benefit your health are only going to work, and you're only going to reap the most benefits from them when your nervous system is functioning at 100%. So
for sure,
super important.
Yeah, I think with any condition, we were talking about this a bit earlier. So totally, I agree with that point, right? It's and it's not just us that believe this. Everyone believes it, because if somebody said, I'm going to exercise, eat well, sleep, all the right things, minimize toxins, but we take a pair of scissors and cut the nerve that goes to your heart. People are like, well, of course none of those things are going to matter, because there's not communication from brain to heart, brain to body. So everyone knows that that's true. There's not a doctor in the world that argues that you have to have neurologic connection from brain to body, right? It's to what degree, to what extent, right? Does the daily grind, the daily exercise, workout, sleep habits, all these things that are negative into our system, sitting at a desk all day, is that enough to create negativity within the system? And we know through chiropractic, absolutely, right? The weight of a dime placed on a nerve shuts the nerve flow by 50%.
Yeah, so we don't need to, obviously, cutting the nerve to the heart is an extreme example, but
for sure,
to go back to that, to go back to that point, it, like you said, it takes a weight of a dime on that nerve. So we don't need to cut the nerve, we just need to put the weight of a dime on it, which is what subluxation is. You know, that misalignment in the spine, putting compression on that nerve, compromising the nerve, irritating the nerve, and creating further issues. Over time, chronic diseases, but acute issues in pain and different sensory functions.
Yeah, and so I had mentioned earlier B.J. Palmer's quote that says, "Have you more faith in a spoonful of medicine than the power that animates the living world?" And right, so B.J. said we have what we call innate intelligence, right? We have intelligence that governs our body. It travels from our brain through our nervous system, controls, keeps our body well. And so when we're going to put a medication into our system, when we're going to put a supplement into our system, when we're going to eat the right foods, we're going to do an anti-inflammatory diet, some of these things are great. I mean, we absolutely believe there is a time and a place for medication. Yes, people should be supplementing because our food is, devoid nutrients. So there's a lot of those things, but are you going to think that those things are going to create more change into the system than the fact that your brain sends 30 trillion messages a minute to your body, keeps your body functioning, living, healthy, adapting, coordinating on every level, and that's the place we should be starting. That's the one big change, the one thing that people seem to forget is that central nervous system integrity is the core of all healing and all health.
And health comes from within. It's not anything that you're going to take from the outside and put inside of you, because God gave us the most amazing innate intelligence and healing power in our brain, in our nervous system, to be able to have all of those functions coordinating well from the time that you're born. So over time, putting all of these other toxic man-made things into our body, that's what's killing us. But health comes from within.
Yeah, we've said this before, right? It's the chiropractic principle. There's an old saying, chiropractic, that says the body doesn't need help, it just needs no interference, right? And so I like the analogy of the fish pond, which says if you've got a bunch of sick fish in a pond, and you're like, okay, what do we need to give these fish, right? We're going to give them, drugs maybe so they get more blood circulation. We're going to, more nutritious food. And then if you take a step back and say, hey, instead of giving them something, how about we just clean up the pond, right? How about we just restore their condition, their environment back to what it should be? And so to me, that's a wellness paradigm. Get our bodies functioning as they should be, and then get our environment as it should be. We don't need, again, most of the time, we don't need a plethora of drugs in the system. We don't need even the supplements. If our nutrition was pristine, we wouldn't need supplements. If we were living our lives, constantly moving and exercising, being outdoors, if we were, sleeping appropriately, if we were hydrating, if we were doing all the things that we used to do, we look back hundreds of years in our culture and society, we would have much better health, much better wellness in our world, for sure.
I agree. Alrighty. Anything else to add to that?
I don't know. That was wellness paradigm.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching episode 6, Wellness Paradigm. If you do have any other questions or topics that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to shoot us a DM. We'd be happy to cover anything that you'd like. So you have a great rest of your day. Until next time.